One concept in the spiritual life, which is often kind of misunderstood, is this notion of offering up your sufferings. So it's one of these things that might sound like Catholicism 101, but actually it's a somewhat, again, misunderstood concept. So I would suggest that a lot of people, when they're in moments of suffering, let's say you're in the throes of agony, like you know that you're supposed to offer up your sufferings, but then the question is, what does that mean? Maybe there's something wrong with the terminology, maybe there's something wrong with the phraseology. But in any case, when people hear that, offering up your sufferings, it sounds like another thing that the Lord wants me to do in the midst of my suffering that I'm going through at the particular moment, right? So, Lord, I'm going through this really challenging and difficult thing, again, perhaps in the throes of agony, and what you gave me this extra assignment, to offer up my sufferings. That doesn't seem to be super consoling, right? But again, I think what's important is to kind of clarify what we're talking about here, right? Because if you think about it, this idea of choosing to offer up your sufferings, choosing to unite your sufferings with Christ, however you want to frame it, it sounds like it's something that we have to actively do. And certainly there is a role for us to play in terms of collaborating with God's grace, but it's not what you think perhaps, right? It's not like, okay, I got to choose now to unite my sufferings to the sufferings of Christ, right? Even if you wanted to do that, like how would you do it, right? I mean, just think about it, right? A lot of people would think of it in terms of, a Jedi mind trick, for example. Like I got to think my way to kind of unite my sufferings with the sufferings of Christ, or to offer up my sufferings. Or perhaps people might even breathe a certain way. They might look at it like a Buddhist thing. I don't know, like whatever, right? But if you were to ask yourself right now, like, how do I offer up my sufferings? How do I unite my sufferings with the sufferings of Christ? Maybe things like that come to mind, which, when expressed outwardly, seem kind of strange, and rightly so, right? But you see, the thing that's missing here is that the union between Christ's sufferings and our sufferings has already taken place. That was accomplished many years ago when Christ suffered and died on the cross. Simply through the act of suffering and dying on the cross, Jesus Christ forever transformed the nature of human suffering and death, such that these things are no longer a sign of the ultimate defeat of humankind. They're no longer a cause for despair, but rather, ironically and amazingly and mystically, these things have become the very means by which we are saved and redeemed and share in Christ's resurrection. And you must never let the great novelty or grandeur of this particular reality diminish in your imagination. It remains forever this amazing thing that by entering into our suffering, Christ has forever transformed it, such as now become the means by which we are saved. Now, to bring it back to our original idea of like, what do we do when we're suffering? This idea of offering up our sufferings. What does it kind of look like, practically speaking? Well, again, it's not a matter of us putting in the effort to unify our sufferings with the sufferings of Christ, because that's already happened. That's already taken place once, now, and forever, right? When Christ, again, suffered and died on the cross. Perhaps I would suggest it's simply a matter of memory. To remember that this has taken place, the union between our suffering and the sufferings of Christ, and to consent to that reality, to believe in the salvific value of our suffering because it's united with the sufferings of Christ, and to joyfully expect great things as a result of our acceptance of that particular reality. That, I might suggest, my friends, is what it means to offer up our sufferings in union with the sufferings of Christ. Sit back and live out that reality and trust and believe that God will bring about great things, beginning with your own life, but then, of course, extending to the whole world. And may God bless you all.